For purposes of full disclosure, I was going to start a little while ago, but Rita was like, nah, I don't want to jinx it.
There's a lot of jinxes that I have here. Can I explain myself?
I will let you explain yourself.
All right, there's a lot of jinxes that I did not want to come to fruition, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have never experienced a trifecta of wins, ever. I've never had a trifecta of wins.
Well, now, what is a trifecta?
Like, meaning, like, three things that I was rooting for, whether it was three teams or, like...
Oh, cool. So you got Florida yesterday.
I got Florida yesterday. I don't really want to talk about the second win, but I got a second win yesterday.
Who's your second win?
I don't want to talk about it because
well,
I don't want to talk about politics today. But I got a second win yesterday. My bad.
I honestly, I just thought you were referring to football.
No,
That's
I got a second win yesterday. I got two dubs yesterday, and then so I just knew the Ravens was gonna lose, right?
I'm so dense. Like you
kept pushing it, and I ain't even want to do that.
I'm so dense.
Just let me say I had two W's. So last week we had Javonte won,
right?
And Florida won,
right.
But then the Ravens lost. That's usually how it goes for me. That's usually my thing, right? So I was like,
you didn't want to mess with it. You didn't want to mess with it.
I didn't want to mess with the trifecta.
I hear you.
That's all
I got good news. You got it.
Finally
the
got
Ravens
a trifecta.
win.
Thank you.
We're in the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Studio press box. It is the Project Game Day post-game show. Glenn Clark, the NFL chick, Syreeta Hubbard. And yes, the Ravens are going to win in Indianapolis, snapping a streak of 20 consecutive games in which they trailed at the half and lost.
Yes.
As Rita pointed out before we started, also finally getting a victory in Indianapolis. Like that as well. Now, I'm telling you, Rita, it's funny because the halftime show was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. It was, as you would imagine, a lot of negativity.
And rightfully so.
Rightfully so, but I had this weird feeling. We do the way we do the show is I have to set up the post-game show as soon as the halftime show ends. I put in, a description for the show, and I literally every week have to make a judgment at that point. I can always change it before we start, but I'll say Glenn and Rita react to the Ravens blank against the Colts or over the Colts or to the Colts.
Right.
And I put in at halftime Glenn and Rita react to the Ravens win.
You said win
over the Colts.
Purposely?
I did, 100%.
Okay.
I know the first half of this game was really weird.
No, bad.
And bad, I'm fine with.
Only one side of the ball, because the other side of the ball did their part.
Yeah, the defense was fine. And I say weird. Maybe I'm using. Look, the offense played terribly in the first half. I'm not arguing with you. They played terribly, but it was weird in that I get that the offense has not been what we expected it to be. I don't think they were nearly as bad as they played in the first half. I didn't expect a full game of the offense playing like that. And while the Colts defense is good, and I don't want to take anything away from them, they have a good defense. If that was about their defense in the first half, then they have maybe the greatest defense in the history of ever, because the Ravens offense did nothing in half one.
Nothing.
So it really felt more like a weird day in which it was just sort of a sleepwalky first half. Maybe all of the strangeness of the last 7 days, losing the game the way you did, then having Marlon test positive, and then guys being separated. It was a weird week. It was just a weird kind of week. The Ronnie Stanley injury on top of everything else. I just felt like some of that was sort of playing out in the first half of this football game. Second half, it's particularly after they get the incredible good fortune of the reversal on the Marcus Peters interception. But even the first drive.
Hey, man, we talked about this. I'm a gambling person. We like to gamble around here, right? And had I bet on that, I would have lost. If I bet on that Harbaugh actually getting that call go his way. Because
I got to be honest with you. I still disagree with it.
I still disagree with it. I don't see it.
Al Riveron did a video explaining it, and I'm like, why are we not talking about the fact that, the ball never really seemed to be secure?
That's the part that I couldn't understand. Y'all were talking about the feet.
Right.
And okay, fine. But to me, he never really looked like he had a full grasp of having the ball.
He looked like he was close to having the ball.
Right.
He looked like...
And then when he almost got it, it got jarred loose.
Correct.
So I would have lost a lot because I would have bet a whole lot of money on that, and I would have lost.
No doubt. I still think that was terrible. But for what it's worth, the Ravens' offense was very good on the first drive. It just ended with, again, something so uncharacteristic. I cannot overreact to Gus Edwards fumbling the ball because it never happens. It never, ever, ever happens. So Gus Edwards fumbles the ball.
Wait, I know he fumbled sometime this year in the red zone.
He's fumbled twice now in his
All right,
career.
so what you mean? It
But
never
it's
happened.
in his
It happened already.
career.
I could have
He's
sworn
fumbled
that.
the ball
Wait a minute,
twice.
somebody fumbled this year in the red zone.
Ingram did.
I don't know.
Well, it might have been Gus this year. But it might have been Gus this year. But again,
Okay.
that's his second fumble.
Well.
That's it. Two.
I mean,
So I can't overreact
the
to it.
likelihood of it happening for you
It's
was,
a weird.
yeah.
It's an anomaly.
Yes.
It's an outlier.
It's not something that happens often.
Correct.
Yeah.
That Gus Edwards would have fumbled the ball. So I can't overreact to that. They had a good first drive. Yes, they get the good fortune of the Marcus Peters thing that none of us still seem to agree with. But after that point, don't. I don't want to talk about it. But after that point, the offense starts clicking again and plays very well for the rest of the second half, which allows me to believe that the first half was
a fluke, basically.
Weird.
It was a fluke.
Like that thing that happens sometimes in football where it's just weird circumstances.
Yes.
It's
It
not
does.
there.
It does.
A lot of people like to kill Greg Roman. I get it. We never perennially we will always despise the offensive coordinator. It's the way that it works.
Yes.
But you have to give significant credit to the offensive coaching staff for the adjustments they made, going up tempo, getting the job done in the second half.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree. In the first half, third and short, you wanted to try to create some type of tempo, and you're still being conservative and you're running the football. And I don't understand why what is it? Why were you so scared of the Colts? And I get that their defense is really fast, so I get that,
incredibly fast.
And so I understand it, right? But for you to not challenge them is a problem to me. And I don't know if you were just trying to get the feel of what they were doing, and then just trying to get the first down because you felt like maybe you were in a better position at 3rd and 4 to run it. I don't know. I just didn't really care for it. Also, as Greg Roman didn't have a great first half, the offensive line didn't have a great first half. It was probably one of the worst first halves I've seen from this offensive line in a good while.
No question.
Nobody looked good, and it showed in how they played. And so that's why you do give Greg Roman the credit. He made the adjustments at halftime and said, okay, we're going to be up tempo, but we're also going to create some situations where we give him a little bit of time, and it allowed him to get the ball out and get some intermediate throws that, allowed them to move the ball downfield.
100%.
So, I mean, credit to Roman and also the offensive line for getting themselves together at at halftime, because it was a tale of two completely different halves.
No question.
It was a mess.
It was an absolute mess.
Now, I mean, and we can talk about this at the end of the show, right? Going forward, you wonder how this is all going to work out. But you take what you get today. You take what you get today, which is at halftime, you figured out a way to make things work. And it worked in your favor, and ultimately it helped you seal the deal to win this
and
football
let's not
game.
forget, you won on the road against a team that was 5-2.
Yes. Yes.
I
Who won
get
3 straight, by the way.
I get that we judge everything by the idea that the Ravens are supposed to be so good that they're just supposed to roll everybody, and we kind of got used to that a year ago.
But a year ago is gone. Like,
Correct.
we're not the same team from a year ago.
They won on the road against a good football team, or at least on paper a good, at least a team with a good record.
Football team.
I think
they were tied for first place.
Yes.
With the Titans also, I believe, were 5-2 or 4-2, whatever
correct.
they were.
Titans were 5-2.
Yeah.
Yep. So they beat, and without 2 of their 3 best football players.
Exactly.
That's not like we want to dismiss these things and just, hey, the Ravens, their birthright is to win every game by 5 touchdowns. They won by 2 touchdowns on the road against a good football team without 2 of their 3 best players.
Yes. So
that's a thing.
So-
Let's have that conversation today.
Let's have this conversation, because while we're talking about adjustments that need to be made from this team from 2019 to 2020, right? Mm-hmm. As fans, we need to do the exact same thing. I think too many times I'm seeing people live in 2019 and we're not there anymore.
There's no doubt.
And so we have to readjust how we view this football team for what they are, not from what they've done. You know how the adage of "what have you done for me lately" goes with the NFL? You know why? It's because things can go from worst to first or first to worst in a snap of a finger. So I know that last year was a fun ride. I know that we scored a plethora of points and we were just running it up on everybody. This is not the same team. So you got to get with who they are now. They have some missing pieces offensively, but they're working through it. They found a way to win a competitive football game. They're at 6-2, and they're still in cahoots of being potentially in the AFC North
They have to keep getting better, Rita.
Yes,
and not just because the
yes.
Titans are looming in 2 weeks, because the Steelers are looming in 3 weeks, but really because the standard, as I keep saying, is the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you're going to do something this, you're going to have to be able to beat them. They have to keep getting better.
Forget that, Glenn. Forget that. At this point, you got to do it one by one.
I'm not, Rita, I hear what you're saying, but I think what I'm saying is more like, you have to show that you're improving as a football team. And I still think there are going to be a lot of people that are going to look at today as a whole and say, I don't know if you're improving as a football team. And I don't know that that's unfair. You have to keep showing that you're improving as a football team, but we have to judge everything about today. We can't just say, hey, the first half says to me you weren't improving as a football team.
Because the second half said you did.
Maybe, yeah. You know what I mean?
You did enough to win the football game.
Well, certainly enough to win the football game, but it might be a sign of you getting better as a whole.
But this is what I'm saying. But that's why I'm saying week to week, you gotta go with what you can get, right? So yes, you're right. Overall, can you show me that you're improving as a football team? Yeah, that's a good conversation to have. But guess what? They played like crap in one half, and they came back and played way better in the other. So you got to play. Hey, you're only as good as your last win or your last loss or whatever they like to say. You got to roll. You got to roll with what was that, and then build from there. I can't tell you what I think is going to happen from this team from here on out. I can only hope that each week they do something better than they did the last, and they find a way to win a football game. Now, I know we're overlooking New England because
we all kind of think that, they're
struggling.
A mess.
They're a mess. However, right, it's still Bill Belichick. It's still New England. That defense is still, they tend to know how to dial up against teams that run similar offenses like Lamar. So I'm not overstepping that. And I would hope that the Ravens wouldn't.
I can't fathom they will.
I would hope that they wouldn't either.
And it's a primetime game. They're going to want to,
Absolutely.
I'm not nervous about any of that necessarily, but they need to keep getting better. There's no doubt.
That's it.
The Project Game Day postgame show is brought to you by the U.S. Army. Let's get to some comments. Paul in Orlando. Hopefully the second half of this game can be the catalyst for the rest of the season, like the second half of the Seattle game was last season. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah,
right?
but like the Seattle game last season was like 2 weeks ago or almost 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a little bit earlier.
So they had started trending up earlier than what we're doing now. I mean, I get your point, and I don't disagree with it. You want that to be.
I think that's fair to say. I hope you're right. I'm not sure that I can't sit back here and tell you today that I think that's what it's going to be.
I'm just saying they late to that party. If that's what we going by, they're late to that party, and understandably
and they need to do it against part of the story of Seattle was. That was Russell Wilson. That was a team that we legitimately thought was going to threaten to win a Super Bowl at that point. The Colts aren't that. If the Ravens in 2 weeks run over the Titans, just overwhelm them, enforce their will, playing that style of offense, then we're going to be in a way different place to sit back and say, well, maybe this is the day where everything kicks into gear, and now they can go be that team moving forward. But right now, sure, we'll hope.
Yeah.
We'll hope. AJ, what a challenge by Harbaugh. Yeah, I mean,
hey, man,
look.
listen. I swear, I would have put a whole lot of money on that as a prop bet, and I would have lost.
It worked.
Been so mad.
I mean, I'm in this weird spot where it drives me nuts, particularly in the second half. You cannot waste timeouts. You cannot waste timeouts when you're playing against good teams. A couple things. Today, it turns out they wouldn't even need the timeout because they ended up rolling. But secondarily, we can have a long conversation about the letter of the law. I'm still not okay with the challenge because I am not convinced that the officials got it right.
I'm just glad it worked in their favor.
But
That's it.
Ultimately, that's all I really want to say at this point is it worked, so cool. We'll go for it. Tim says, hi, Rita. Where did you get your T-shirt? Go Ravens.
So I have a football crew, and shout out to them. I haven't spent any time with them, obviously, due to COVID.
We're not
going to the bars. So this is a friend of mine designed this. This is our crew T-shirt that we typically would wear when we're together.
Ah, it's nice.
And
it's nice.
So
nice to feel like you're kind of.
I missed them a little bit today because So I wanted to pay some homage to my friends. That's basically it.
T-Bone, it's a tale of two halves. Yeah, I mean, sure, 100%. It was a tale of two halves.
That's it.
But football can be that way.
It's a lot of times it's that way, right?
I know that we would much rather have watched the Ravens deliver a thorough ass kicking for 4 quarters. But the nature of the NFL is we know better. We know better than to think that the majority of games go that way where one team is just drastically better than the other team for 4 quarters. Not saying it doesn't happen. Not saying we're all talking about the Buccaneers as being the team to beat in the NFC at the moment, right? Like, it's the hot thing for everybody to say. They were miserable against the New York Giants in the first half on Monday night.
And that's football.
Miserable. Yeah. Terrible. They weren't that much better in the second half, but they were miserable in the first half. Does that mean they're no longer the team in the NFC? Does that mean they stink? Like, football is that way. And I know that T-Bone's not saying that, but I think other people are. I think there are other people that want to condemn the Ravens because they played a bad half of football today.
I just feel like...
And forget all about the really good half of football that they played.
So if you're watching the rest of the league, right, like, there's a lot of teams, including the Chiefs, guys, including the Chiefs.
They didn't play a great first half today.
Who have not really played complete games all season long.
It's so rare.
It's just, and then with this year in particular, you know, with this is just being an unprecedented year with preparation and training camp and all of these other factors that's been happening because, you know, of the pandemic. You know, I think that's probably what we're going to see more than we would like.
And specifically today on the road against a good football team.
On the road against a good football team.
This is not you played at home against Jake Luton and played a crap, you know, like game that you happened to win. You went on the road. You played against the Colts, who are a pretty good football. I don't want to nobody thinks they're a Super Bowl contender or something along those lines, but they're a pretty good football team. And you ended up winning the game by 2 touchdowns.
We heard about this defense all day long.
You know what? They were better than I realized they were.
Me too. They were faster than I expected them to be. And yes, you had some things swing your way. You had some injuries that kind of came into play on both sides of their football team. That potentially had an impact. But, you know, guess what? That's the game. People get hurt. I mean, we literally lost 2 guys last week on the offensive line. That has essentially changed
no Marlon Humphrey today. Like, your MVP by a mile on this football team was not available to you today.
But his ghost was there.
Yeah, that's true.
Shout out
that's
to Marcus
a good
Peters.
point. Marcus Peters making plays.
Marlon Humphrey was making plays.
KZ, I feel bad for Colts fans. That D is super, and Rita's boy stinks.
Listen, he ain't my boy no more. When he left the Chargers, that was it. I got off the ride, KZ.
You divorced your boy.
Because he was washed at that point.
So everybody know, if you don't know, Rita always had a thing for Phil Rivers.
I did.
Always was. That was always her guy.
It's my guy.
And so one
day he'll be a Hall of Famer, but he looks like doo-doo
it's bad.
now.
It's really bad.
He looks like doo-doo now.
I think a lot of people doing the how is this a better option than Jacoby Brissett bit today, and I don't know how to argue that.
Well, I've seen people on Twitter ask that question, and it's a valid question because I mean, I don't
think Jacoby Brissett is special. I don't think he's special.
People will turn around and say, well, they're 5-2, so I mean,
right,
or 3. Excuse me, 5-3 now.
5-3, right?
5-3 now. So so how bad is it? But he is a shadow of himself. I am not Phillip Rivers, the Colts fan. I was Phillip Rivers, the San Diego, not LA, the San Diego Chargers.
San Diego Superchargers.
Colts, that fan.
Brian, good to see them make adjustments and come out strong in the second half, and good to have a tiebreaker now over these guys. I don't know what the scenarios, the tiebreaker really matters.
I don't know either.
I guess there's some scenario where it's the difference for you in being like the 5th seed or the 6th seed or
wrong,
something like
right?
that.
Like you want all the conference wins.
By all means.
You want all the conference
100%. I just don't know that one in particular is going to end up being of significance just because it's so unlikely that both teams somehow win their division. It doesn't look good that either team is going to win the division, but it's so unlikely that they both win the division that I just don't know what the scenario is in which that comes into play. But sure, by all means, absolutely. Craig, and we just have the second half offensive philosophy for the rest of the year. I'll say something. I think that like some people, again, will try to oversimplify this. They made an adjustment. Something wasn't working, and they made something work. And next week, if they play the Patriots and they try to do this in the second half, go up tempo, and the Patriots are ready for it, expect it, then I want them to make an adjustment to something else that works. I think we want to condemn. We are so interested in condemning. Like, they had the wrong strategy today. It was the wrong thing. Like, this is the NFL. In the NFL, sometimes things don't work. And again, it was horrible in the first half. It was unwatchable football in the first half. I'm very aware of that. And I don't have easy explanations for you, but we can't forget that you're playing without two of your offensive linemen. And this is a team that's limited offensively to begin with. And I don't mean that to be disparaging towards Lamar, to be disparaging towards what they did a year ago. They have a small margin for error when it comes to their offense. They are not deep. Anywhere other than running back, obviously. Running back, they're deep. Everywhere else, they have a very small margin for error. They have 2 downfield pass catchers. That's what they have. It didn't work in the first half. They figured some things out and fixed it, and I'm good with that. Now, again, it's got to continue to improve. If next week they go back to being doo-doo offensively, as I'm stealing your doo-doo line, we've got a lot of doo-doo here. If they go back to being doo-doo offensively, I'll kill them over it. I'll be happy to come on here. When Rita and I are doing this at 2 in the morning next Sunday night, I'll be happy to sit here and scream about it.
Yeah.
But today I'm willing to go with the idea that sometimes in NFL games, it just doesn't work, and you have to make an adjustment and do something else. It worked for the Pittsburgh. Yeah, you think in Pittsburgh this past week, they were flipping out about the fact that their offense sucked in the first half against the Ravens? Or do you think they were super excited that they figured out what they needed to do in the second half to win a football game?
You're right. But I don't disagree with, I would like to see a little when the offense looks lagging. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more up tempo, in the first half. If you know that they're struggling a little bit, find a way to get some get out of the huddle fast and get some up tempo plays. I'm actually not against that. I agree with you. I do think that this was just an adjustment period, but I'm saying that I don't have a problem with them mixing that in a couple, in a few series. Get these defenses off their toes. Find ways to get these defenses guessing what you're doing. And if it worked, I don't see why you can't just implement it just for a series.
I hear you.
At the end of the first quarter. You know what I mean? I think that's
you.
my thing. It's I get that halftime is extremely important because it allows you to break down what you did wrong and figure out solutions on what you did right. But it would be nice to see someone make some in-game
I also think that sometimes, here's what I would say, Rita. I think sometimes teams might attempt to make some adjustments in games, and a play just doesn't work out, and it takes them out of schedule, and we say, they're not making any. I think we kind of lose our minds about the adjustment concept because it also requires something to work, and the first drive of the second half worked. Now, if they don't get that interception overturned, the Colts go march to. I don't know what the rest of the game looks like at that point. I have no idea how things go from that moment on. But I think we freak out about these things. They seem so simplistic to us, and sometimes we just have to accept this is the dumbest level of analysis I can give you. Sometimes this is just football. This is just football. That things don't go your way.
That's true. It's valid.
In the course of a game for a little while, you see something, you try something. Whenever it is, it starts working. You go from there. It literally just happened with the team that you played against last week. They looked at halftime and said, wow, we should maybe go empty and see if that works. And they did. And it worked. Yeah. Sometimes that's the way it goes in football.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'm just making a point every now and again, it would be nice to see some in-game adjustments or just trying to switch it up a little bit just to see if it works.
In the first half, they tried running a reverse to Devin Duvernay. They tried doing something to get the ball in his hands. I get that we constantly scream about that, right? Do something. Everybody's screaming about that last week with Marquise Brown. If you haven't been able to force it. Force the issue to get him involved in the offense, right? I don't know, man.
They did that this week, and
did nothing, right?
He did have a.
I'm not talking about. I meant the Duvernay play.
Oh yeah.
They were trying
the Duvernay. Yeah, that.
It was nothing. Yeah. There was nothing there.
And give credit to, again, the Colts defense is extremely fast, and they are very good runners sideline to sideline, and so it didn't allow
outstanding.
It didn't really allow you to.
Dude,
have
how
that.
good is Blackman? Blackman is so good.
Yes, he is.
Oh my God, he's a hell of a player.
He is really good.
Jesus.
Yeah. So again, they did what they were supposed to do. Both defenses, in my opinion, did what they were supposed to do for the most part. They both teams created turnovers, and but essentially what happened is Phillip Rivers didn't allow his team to be in a position.
Just not really good enough. He's not really good enough.
They paid him $25 million, so guess what? He's gonna be there for the rest of the year.
Good for him.
Good luck with y'all,
Yeah,
Indy.
right. No doubt. Not our problem.
Nope.
from KZ. Any road win is a good win. Look, any win is a good win.
Yeah, like
I will.
We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about how ugly it is.
Right.
But at the end, we're gonna be like, hey, that was a good win though. Hey, that's a conference win too. Boom.
Yeah,
we're gonna take it. We're gonna take all the wins. We just saying.
There's nothing wrong with saying you got to play better. There's nothing wrong with saying you got to play better. You got to be more consistent. Say all those things. But the wins are all good. Paul, regarding the offensive line, what's the word on Ben Powers and Ben Bredesen? With no preseason, I often forget that either of them are even on the roster.
I'd like to see Powers. I'm ready. Look. Bozeman had a day, and I do not mean that in a good way. He had a bad day, and Skura didn't have a great day. Apparently, he had a cut on his hand, allegedly, and that's what they said on the cast, that he had a cut on his hand, which was allowing him to. That's why his snaps were bad.
I mean, that got to be. I started to wonder at some point why, and I get it's tough because you're so thin. If you have Phillips, then maybe you have McCary move for the day. Not that you're benching Skura.
But I ain't saying benching Skura, but Bozeman needed to sit down for a minute. Okay, he did not have a good day today.
Well, the one
no,
was
it was a couple.
That was rough.
It was a couple.
That was rough.
There's a couple, and then there's a couple of times like I'm. It's funny because Dobbins was like spinning his way out of stuff because.
Well, that was the one that I was thinking of, right?
I think he did it more than one time because Bozeman was getting blown up, and then he did it again when they were, I believe, inside the red zone, and I was just kind of like, man, he is not having a good day. That's not what I tweeted. I said something different, but he was basically. I said in a way with a little bit of vulgarity, he's not having a good day. He wasn't. And I don't know. Do you give Ben Powers a go? Do you? I mean,
this is always really tough for me, right? Like, I don't know what level is that you say it can't be worse. We always love to say this. We love to say this. Do something else that can't be worse. It's 100% not true. It can always be worse. It can absolutely always be worse. But there is a level at which, without knowing what they think Ben Powers or Ben Bredesen is capable of doing, it might be that they believe that those guys are getting ready, that they're close to being NFL caliber players. Or it might be that they know these guys can't do it. Like, that's who we've got on the roster, so they got to be active on Sundays, but, like, they can't do it. They'd be liabilities if they'd be. I don't know. Obviously, behind the scenes what they know, but they're not turning to them at this point, despite the fact that they've had injuries. Those guys both had the shot to compete for a job in camp. They both had, and we're not seeing it. So my first answer would be, my gut tells me that they're not just purposely putting whoever out there because they
it's obvious there's a reason, right? There's a reason why they're not playing. And clearly the Ravens don't view them
and that
as
goes back,
being ready to play.
And that goes back to, is there a point at which it gets so bad that you have to do something? I think today would have been the argument at center because of the snaps. The snaps themselves were so bad that you can make an argument it was truly detrimental to you. And
thank Lamar, people, because a lot of that could have been real bad.
Yep.
So thank your quarterback for just being heads up about that. And he did a really good job at securing the ball from some of them snaps.
If Phillips had been healthy today, it would have been interesting to see if at some point during that they would have said, all right.
Put Bozeman in.
Put McCary in at center.
I'm sorry.
Put McCary at center. And said, look, today, this isn't us benching you. It's saying, while you're dealing with these cuts on your hands.
That's cool. We're just going to let somebody else do it until you heal.
Correct. Yeah. That's the way it's going to be. I would have been interested in seeing if that had been the case. Now, the fact that McCary had to play guard today because Phillips was out sort of changed a little bit of that. Presuming Phillips is back in the next couple of weeks, I thought for the most part he had been playing fairly well this season, so I don't think that I
thought he improved as the season went along.
I'm going to be honest. I think for the season, Skura's been the one that struggled the most. Now, if I'm being really fair, until he moved over to left, I think the truth is that Orlando Brown had been the one that had maybe struggled the most.
He did.
This season.
He has.
But of the, since I think he's played well since he's shifted over to the left.
Well, that's his natural position.
Correct.
So, obviously, I would assume that for him, it would have been an easier transition. And so he does look pretty comfortable at the left tackle position, right? But man, the rest of that line, I am very interested to see how this goes from the.
They largely play better in the second half.
Yes, they did.
Largely play better.
And again, you have to thank Greg Roman for scheming and allowing that to happen and allowing those plays to progress and giving the offensive line some opportunity to, block for Lamar while he got the balls out pretty quick.
Eric, I'm in agreement. Eric says the snaps are horrible. They were, but like we saw a reason for that. We saw he was clearly dealing with something.
Y'all know them cuts be hurting.
Correct.
Don't say that. Don't act like those cuts. Don't
you're trying to do this bit where I'm a tough guy. I'm a whole thing. No, that has an impact on you.
Hey man, a paper cut will take you down.
No
I don't even know
doubt.
if that was a paper cut. I'm just saying.
Right, whatever it was.
I know that a little baby paper cut gonna take me down.
100%.
So I don't even know what kind of cut he had on his hand, but I understand
why that might have an
impact on his snaps today.
Rita, I was trying to play tennis this morning, and I had like a little bit of soreness right here. And I was a mess because of it. It was terrible.
I can
Those
understand
little things have an impact.
Absolutely.
I don't think this means Matt Skura will never be able to snap the ball again.
Right.
I think it's today he was in a really difficult spot. It made for a weird day. Thankfully, Lamar handled it quite well, and it didn't end up being a bigger issue than it was.
Yep.
Hopefully, Matt Skura will be just fine moving forward, and those snaps will be in a better spot.
Yeah.
Let me run through a few more comments before we get to a break from Phil or Philip. What a second half. Not Philip Rivers. But oddly, the only other Philip I've ever seen that only has one L in his name. Now that I look at it again, that doesn't. What a second half. Proud of them for making that fast pace adjustment.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that instead of allowing this to be a negative thing, you recognize it as the positive.
And it's fine. I don't necessarily consider it not negative. It's okay to critique and say that first half was.
We all know they can't. It was not good.
Okay.
Right.
It's okay to say that.
That's trash for those of you that don't.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Trash.
That's my favorite thing to say. It's Basura. But also, you have to give credit to the fact that they fought and they fought their way back into the game and they allowed themselves to not be down, even though it was still a close game, but it looked early on as if the Colts were really going to make this a game that they were going to have a harder hill to go up.
100%.
Right. Thankfully
it was. Let's say it this way. Thankfully, it wasn't a better offense.
Yeah,
thankfully
but
they were.
Honestly, in the beginning, they were rolling. The fumble really helped because it helped. Obviously, they were moving.
They were moving the ball. They were moving into scoring range. Already up 7-0.
Exactly.
No doubt.
And
no doubt.
So you don't want you took them out of that, and then it allowed your offense to find a way to get themselves together when they went into halftime. Thankfully, your defense is good enough for that. And then they came back and strong in the second half. But, man, I am optimistic that hopefully what they can do from this game is when they go back and look at the film, obviously they're going to see what we saw, but they can build from that and implement those things if need be and not necessarily have to wait until halftime to make those types of adjustments if a defense is coming off strong and aggressive the way that the Colts did today.
Project Game Day postgame show also brought to you by Wise Markets. We're in the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Studio. Brandon's a resident Steelers fan. He says, look, the Steelers have played a bad half in all of but one of their games this year, which reflects on what we're talking about. Like, again, we got used.
And yet they're undefeated.
We got so used to the Ravens a year ago rolling from minute 1 to minute 60 that when they don't do that, we're alarmed. But this is football. This is the way that the majority of games go throughout the course of this league.
And every team is having these same issues.
No doubt.
Nobody is having complete games. I know that you don't care about the other 31 teams. I get it.
Right.
I'm not asking you to care. I'm asking you to understand that this year, for whatever reason, everybody is having, this half was good, but this game was good, but then the next game wasn't good.
The Steelers are the only undefeated team left. They're the darlings of the league. And a week ago, they played like poo.
They sure did, yeah.
Like absolute poo. Like basura in the first half. And yet nobody's screaming about that.
From a defensive standpoint, the second half as well. You allowed.
their defense. I'm talking about their offense.
But their offense, what their offense did was they got him off the hook, and that's what sometimes you need. Yep. In this case, the defense did what they had to do. They helped the Ravens get into some field position. They helped the Ravens in points. Obviously, 7 points got on the board because of the fumble and the scoop. Yep. So sometimes you do. Sometimes
they battled. They hung in there.
And sometimes somebody got to make up for it. Y'all, we used to seeing this. We used to seeing defense
carrying
the load.
We've seen that before. We've seen that a time or two.
I know we thought we was past that, but sometimes sometimes
it's okay.
We might not be past that in that moment.
And sometimes when you put a lot of investments on that side of the ball, that side of the ball needs to do that.
Absolutely. So there's that.
Yep, when that's the way that you're going.
That's that.
We'll come back in. We'll get you ready for next week against the Patriots. It's the Project Game Day post-game show. Glenn and Rita with you. The Ravens won today, 24-10 over the Colts. We'll wrap it up here in a second.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is available now. Our fall seasonal menu is available for dine-in, dine-out, on the patio, or to-go. It's a new season, so enjoy new flavors. Try their new chicken schnitzel or the delicious Prussian pretzel rolls. Glory Days is open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Visit glorydaysgrill.com for a location near you. From the Glory Days Grill family, stay healthy and positive during this challenging time in our community.
Looking to get one up on the competition? Supercharge your computer skills. CCBC has classes at all levels from beginner to expert coder. Explore Microsoft Office, gaming, or even ethical hacker. Maybe hardware is your gig. Become A+ certified. All tuition free if you qualify. Call 443-840-4700 or visit ccbcmd.edu/quickreg.
With Wise Market's lowest price guarantee, we guarantee the lowest price in the area. If a local competitor advertises any of our tagged lowest price guarantee items at a lower price, we'll give you double the difference with purchase.
Eat better, spend less, that's Wise.
If you're looking to make an impact, there's no better place to do that than the U.S. Army. Whether your goal is to fight and cure deadly diseases, develop technologies, or seek adventures across the globe, the Army is where all of that can happen, and so much more. The Army is a team of 1 million individuals working together to take on the most complex problems in the nation and the world, and to win. Ask yourself, what's your warrior? Go to army.com/Baltimore to find out. To learn more, contact your local Army recruiter and find us on social media at U.S. Army Baltimore.
All right, we are winding down for the Project Game Day post-game show. Eric follows up. Ravens fans got spoiled. Last year was historic. Don't expect it every year.
Yes. It is very hard to duplicate seasons like that. I know that you guys look at New England. I know that you guys look at Kansas City. I know. I get it. Every organization is not like that. If the Ravens make the playoffs this year, that's 3 consecutive years of going to the playoffs. They've been good. They're a good organization. They've gotten to the playoffs more than many other organizations have done it. But that doesn't mean that they're going to continue with the same success as last year. They have to find a new way to do it this year. And that's okay, right? Like, it's okay because they've moved on from guys. They've moved on from Yonda. They've moved on from Hurst. They've moved on from some things. So now they have to find a new way to win football games. And that's cool because that's the way that the NFL works. That's how that's the way
and that might require them to have significant turnover. It might be that this Ravens team cannot do what we're hoping they're going to do unless every game they're causing turnovers.
And look, that's just what it is.
That might be the case.
And guess what? You should be used to that. We're used to having a defense that does stuff like that.
When you put resources on that side of the ball, and somebody mentioned to me in the comments that, and I referenced the fact they played without Humphrey and Stanley today. They also played the overwhelming majority today without Calais Campbell either.
Absolutely. What was that, the first or second series?
Yeah, I mean it was, and yet they allowed
for Yannick.
Correct. Who people will get lost in because he didn't come away with 3 sacks or something like that.
Oh, but he played.
He was great.
He played today.
He was in on some huge pressures.
And he is what you got. He is the guy that you wanted when you got him.
Yep.
He's like you said, his stat line might not be that great,
but
right?
no, he made a massive difference.
Absolutely,
today.
He absolutely made up for the fact that Campbell was out, and hopefully he's okay and able to play.
I didn't see anything. I will double check on that real quick.
I haven't seen anything about his injury, but maybe that's good news.
Yeah, I hope that means that
that wasn't too bad. So, but yeah,
I had a calf strain.
Yeah, that's what they said.
John Harbaugh says he doesn't think it's serious. Not sure how long he will be out. Again, you would think that it's not the end of the world if he were to miss next week, but then after that,
you would like him back against Derrick Henry because they used to call him the Derrick Henry killer. So you want that guy if that's his nickname.
Really,
you want that guy to be playing.
To have him back for that week.
But yeah, 2019 is gone, guys. 2020 is here. So let's win games the 2020 way, whatever that is.
Whatever it is, no doubt.
They might be stinky,
no doubt,
but they might win.
Go get them. Go get your wins. Go get your wins. Build it up. Try to make a run. That's the way it goes.
Yep.
All right, Rita, you'll be back here next Sunday night.
Yeah, I might as well bring my sleepover bag.
I mean, it's going to be a late night. Maybe do a little drinking, I don't know.
I'm gonna probably have some drinks in me before I get here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I ain't judging. You think I'm going to start judging you? It's going to be a late night.
Exactly.
Ravens, of course, Patriots next Sunday night. We will be back with you for that on the Project Game Day postgame show. In the meantime, Rita, of course, it's at the NFL Chick on Twitter and the Gridiron Gals podcast.
Yes, at Gridiron Gals.
Of course, I'll be back tomorrow morning for Glenn Clark Radio, 10 o'clock. Evan Washburn worked the game today. He'll be joining us. Stacey Dales worked the game for NFL Network. She'll join us tomorrow as well. And we'll have great stuff throughout the week. Real quick ask for those of you to mark down December 14th. That's the night the Ravens play the Browns on a Monday night. Before that game, we're going to be collecting coats and clothes to benefit the Helping Up mission with a cool pregame party at Looney's in Perry Hall. We would really love if you would come join us. And Michael McCrary has agreed to come out and hang out with us and take some socially distanced pictures. We're going to do things the right way. Sign autographs for everybody that will make a donation. Any donation you make, clothes, coats, the whole deal, to benefit Helping Up mission, who we want to lift up. He's going to take some pictures and do all that for you, so it'll be a fun night. Looney's in Perry Hall, 6:30 to 8:30, ahead of the Ravens-Browns game for Monday Night Football on December 14th. Would really like to see y'all come out and join us for that. Appreciate it. All right. Ravens win. That's the good news. Yep. Ravens win. Thanks again to Wise Markets, to the U.S. Army for making the Project Game Day postgame show possible. We will see you next week